What's up guys, Pied Piper 33 here. Welcome to Destiny Gunmaster. Now this is a series where we analyze legendary and exotic weapons in Destiny to decide what works and what doesn't. Now this is a viewer driven series, so be sure to leave your choice for next week in the comments below. Today's gun is the NL Shadow 701X. It's a scout rifle that you can pick up in the Crucible as a reward or another random drop, but it cannot be purchased anywhere in the tower. Now the Shadow is a scout rifle with a faster rate of fire, but a lower impact, which means less damage per shot, leaving you to have to hit more shots consecutively in order to take out your target. Now this doesn't mean that it isn't an effective weapon. Higher rate of fire scout rifles are actually starting to become a little bit more popular in the Crucible due to Dead Orbis Deadshot Luna being purchasable and coming with a full auto stock on the gun. First thing that we're going to look at, and it's something that I would recommend doing before you really start using any gun, is taking a little bit of time to look at the gun's recoil pattern for both aiming down sights and for hip fire. For this, I like to fire just a few shots at a wall just to see where the pattern's at. Now, as you see on the left, we have the ADS pattern, and then on the right, we have the hip fire pattern for the rifle. And you also notice that both tend to veer up and slightly to the right, which with practice is going to be a very easy pattern to offset even with a controller. Obviously with ADS, you can see that the recoil only needs a slight correction in order to make sure that your shots are hitting where you want them to, whereas hip fire is going to be significantly greater. Now that's not to say that you shouldn't fire the Shadow from the hip, but only do that when your enemy is only within a few meters from you. And you'll see in the video that I'm still able to get a few kills while firing from the hip. Okay, so now that we know what the recoil pattern is, let's cover the perks. Now for the first slot, a lot of this will depend on what your specific preference is as a player and as to the type of scope that you want to be using. For me, I ended up with 3 different types of scopes on my roll. First was a regular housed red dot sight. Second was an ACOG type scope. Third was a lesser housed red dot for quicker target acquisition in closer quarters. Now this is something you can either get used to using one particular scope, or you can adapt to each level, changing your scope depending on just how the close quarters you intend to be in fighting. Now even with this in mind, it's usually a better idea to keep the same strategy in mind when you start choosing a special weapon for your loadout. Now for scout rifles, I recommend using a shotgun, as anybody that's going to be getting any closer than medium range can usually get taken out with a quick shotgun blast to the face. Now after some extensive testing with this gun, I've found that I got the most damage output by reforging until I got full auto in my second slot. And what I found is this allowed me to focus on managing the recoil instead of pulling on the trigger as quickly as possible in order to maximize my rate of fire. Though most of what you're going to be seeing in this video is done without the full auto perk activated. Now for the third slot, I was able to get both a quick draw and explosive rounds with oiled frame as a backup. I'll leave details on what these do in the description below. Quick draw tends to be what I'm using in the Crucible for this weapon, as it allows me to swap from my special weapon quicker when I need to get back to longer range targets. Now, explosive rounds provide a good PvE alternative to the third slot, as you'll see more enemies grouping up there to deal the most damage with your rifle. Oiled frame as a backup is great if you find that you want to run with something a little longer ranged than a shotgun, something like a sidearm or a fusion rifle, as it will allow you to get your reload done much quicker than you would otherwise. For the final slot, I chose my roll with Army of One, as it is effective in both PvE and PvP with relative consistency. Now you can usually take down a Guardian in the Crucible with just a few shots, leaving you with a bonus cooldown to your melee and your grenade. I found this to be particularly effective in control matches in the Crucible. For PvE, I found this to be really nice when taking on hordes of Hive that tend to rush you down, and when you're in need of that AoE from the grenade and the extra damage from the melee. Scout rifles are the most effective from medium to long range, and the Shadow isn't any different. When using this weapon in the Crucible, try to play more to the strength of the weapon, allowing the Guardians rushing in with shotguns to go ahead of you in the front lines, while you stay back and either wear down other Guardians or pick them off after the shotguns and hand cannons didn't quite finish their kills. Longer ranged enemies are usually taken down again with a few shots to the head. Generally, you'll find the enemy missing shots or not dealing enough damage to you before you can take them down. Alright guys, well that's my assessment of the NL Shadow 701X. What do you guys think would be the best perks for this weapon? Do you guys use a different scout rifle, or is this just not the weapon type for you? Let me know in the comments, and be sure to let me know what weapon you guys want to see for the next episode of Gunmaster. Thank you guys so much for watching, and be sure to subscribe for more Destiny content. Make sure you always pay the piper, and we'll see you in the next one. Good pops out of those, as well as any tips and tricks that I learn along the way for you guys. Thursday, we're going to be going over Destiny news. That video will likely be a little bit later on in the day due to it being Destiny news day. We have to wait for Deej to update everyone on what's going on with Destiny. Friday will continue to be Azure day, so we'll go over what he has there in the morning and go over a little bit